Welcome to Stars and Stripes. Our flag is the symbol of freedom and justice for all. Many brave Americans fought and died for this freedom. America was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. When we allow our Constitution to be destroyed and God is taken out of America, there is and can be no freedom.
Welcome to Stars and Stripes. I'm your host, Pastor Ken Jones. Here we are in part 4 with Michael Karachun. An interesting conversation talking about our country. Christians, wake up. We need to get involved, proactive about our country. At least be informed so we can pray. And we need to pray daily for our leadership in our country, for our pastors, for every situation, every agency in the government. And we need to seek God continuously on how we must get involved. Right now, I want to bring to you, most of you already have heard Michael Karachun, a man who was active in America, a man that is compassionate about America, and he does a lot of research on these things. I just want to welcome Michael Karachun. Welcome again to Stars and Stripes, Mike.
Thank you for having me back. And let's see, what was that last question that we were on?
The question we were talking about was something about the troops being here, and also I don't remember exactly how we phrased it, but we wanted to continue talking about the different families that was involved and who's responsible.
Okay, I don't have the list here because these names are so funny. They're European names. What you basically have, you have the European bankers, which control, and it's 13 families. Now, the main family that everybody always hears about is the Rothschilds. They're one of the head ones, but there's 12 others. Now then, when you look at your dollar bill and you look at the back, they got their stamp on here, that pyramid. They're the eye at the top. If you're not in that eye, it don't matter whether you're a billionaire or who you are. Doesn't matter how rich you are. If you're not in that eye, and you can't be in that eye unless you're one of the member of one of the 13 families. And everybody can't remember their names. Some of these European names are like this. Can't even half pronounce them, but I've got a list of them in there. And this isn't just my research. There are people that have made seminars about all this all around the world trying to wake up people. They got the proof that goes back, how far back these families go. Okay? They know. So anyhow, they're in the eye. You're not in that eye. Look in the back of your $1 bill. That pyramid shows the structure. The higher up you are, the more important you are. But if you're not in the eye, doesn't matter if you're a billionaire. You don't control anything. You may have $1 billion in the bank. They can take it whenever they want to. You may have mansions around the world. You control nothing unless you're in that eye. So this is what I got to say to all the people that think they got something. You have nothing unless you're one of those members of the 13 families. And that's it. And you think these people aren't real? Here's a list of Bilderbergs. I used to keep a list of all the attendees to all the Bilderberg meetings. Right here. Here's a list of, you'd be surprised who's on these. Council of Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission. Here's a list. Not even a complete list. Guess what? You look at every White House and their staff. They've had a controlling of the White House. Of all of them. Sitting there in the staff. If you look at the Joint Chiefs of Staff, they've controlled the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They're all the way back. If you look at the banking industry, which is what controls, you find out that in 1913, that the tax acts that they said was passed, that it was illegal. They never met the constitutional requirements to be passed. Okay. Then you look at the Federal Reserve Act. The American people were lied to there, saying that it was passed in 1916. It never met the constitutional requirements to be passed. People need to look this up. Now, Congress knows this. And Representative Ron Paul, I got his interview in there. He says right straight up that this whole business of the IRS is illegal because it's based on the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is legal. The whole business is illegal. There's nothing legal about any of it. Now then, you get these people, the 13 families are the ones that sit over on top of the Bilderbergs and the Trilateral Commission, Knights of Malta, and all the rest. They're the ones at the top. And David Rockefeller is one of the main members. Rockefeller is right in there. And he said, I want to give a warning to the American people. He said that a model for a government is the Chinese when Mao Zedong was the leader. That was a model government that we should be modeling. Well, he only killed 15 million of his own people that got in the way. And that's a model government. Okay? So you got to see how dangerous these people are. They control the International Monetary Fund, and there are whistleblowers out there all over the place now. And there is now a rage of deaths in the top ranks of the banking industry. Okay, now you got the international bankers. They own the International Monetary Fund. They own the World Bank. Guess who funds about 80% of all this? The American people. Okay? Then you got the BIC. The BIS, right? The Bank of International Settlements. People say, well, what is that? That was a bank especially set up after the First World War for war reparations of Germany. Well, that's long past. Okay? Well, guess what? A lot of your governments, when you research this out, they use that as a good way to launder money. To hide money that they don't want people to see. That's just one of their little places that they've got there. Well, guess what? They control that. So they own the whole Federal Reserve System, a private bank. Now, you can't buy stocks in the Federal Reserve. The only ones that have stocks are the ones they give permission to. Well, who do you think is the ones that's got the stocks? It's them at the top. Now then, all the money of the United States passes through the Federal Reserve. They've made trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. Nobody knows where the money goes to. Well, I can tell you where a lot of money goes to. It goes to them. I saw a Rothschild interview. He opened up his safe. I couldn't believe that they did this. They're usually always very conservative and don't want to be in the limelight. He opened up his personal vault. Had like a couple of $1 trillion of gold in it. One man. No gold in the United States. It all disappeared. It's all gone. The American Treasury's flat. Now then, where does all the money come? When countries borrow money from the International Monetary Fund or the World Bank, you'll find out that the terms are usually so stiff they can't afford to pay it back. It breaks them down where they're poorer and poorer. That leads to a revolution in the country. Well, when the revolution comes around and the countries are disabled, guess who comes in and winds up buying up the land and owning it? They do. They're now busy going around the world buying up all the water rights. You can't live very long without water. They have since sold the American heartland, a lot of it, to the Chinese. Americans think they got food coming. No, they don't. California's in trouble with food. 40% of our stuff you see at the stands in the grocery stores, California. What about Texas? Now you got one of these viruses that has hit the hog production, over 4 million piglets. Still going on, dying. And it can kill humans too. So anyhow, what I'm saying is they have got all this control. And everybody thinks there's a free enterprise system in the United States. There's not. There's 10 conglomerates that own all the industry in the United States. 10 conglomerates. And they have interlocking directorships. So you got a very few at the top, like George Soros, that calls all the shots. Now you get on the food and chemical side, like in farming, you got Monsanto with their genetically modified organisms, which will take over eventually all the food because they destroy regular food crops. And it's already proven that genetically modified causes cancers, tumors, it'll kill you. There've been whole herds of cattle just fall over dead eating that mess. And then you got Cargill. So now you got Cargill and them. So people think they're going to have an endless supply. No, they've been closing down private farms. Where's all the private farms around here where I live? They're all big corporate stuff now. So you might have a few small private farms. They don't want private farms. They do not want independence. They're even going around the United States plowing up people's gardens, making it against the law. In some cities, they have passed laws. If you have a bucket in your yard to collect rainwater, it's against the law. To collect rainwater. And people are so silly as to let these legislatures get away with this? Yeah, people don't realize that. So now you've got where if you're homeless, it's against the law to be homeless. It's against the law to grow your own food. It's against the law to even collect water from God's nature when it rains. And now they got the BLM out there, which is another illegal agency. You ought to see who's running the BLM. That's another. Their goal is strictly to get out there and enforce Agenda 21. Now people say, what's Agenda 21? Well, you got the, this is a UN document that has been adopted by all of the Western powers. We're not the only country. Australia, you ought to listen to people in Australia, New Zealand, and all around. This isn't just here in this country. These people want the one world government. Agenda 21, and then there's another document, the short form is, well, the long form is biodiversity. I gave you the name of it there. I can't remember the name of it. It's a document that's that thick by the UN saying how they're going to implement Agenda 21. What Agenda 21 is, that about 80% of all land will not be available to the public. The public will be allowed not to own any land, any houses, private houses. You won't be allowed to own your own vehicles. You're going to be forced to live in big cities. And you're not even going to be, because they say that the earth can't support it. And of course, you won't even be air conditioning, electrical appliances. It's all under there. You think you're going to have all this stuff. No, you're not. You're going to be knocked back to less than a third world country. That's their plan. And you're going to be their slave. It's all right there in the documents. They even have a map of what land you're going to be able to go on and not go on. Now, of course, the elite will still be allowed to have their houses, their mansions, their yachts. They'll be allowed to go anywhere they want to in the world. That doesn't affect them because they say they have the right to rule. And the world would be better off with them ruling. Now, you look at all their documentation, they tell you that the world is overpopulated. And they're not using real science for any of this stuff, by the way. Well, what they want to do is they want the population to be pared down to 500 million. And have a 1 million man army armed with everything, which should be under the guidance and control of the UN, which they control. So that any one group gets doesn't follow what they say, they go in there and take care of them. This has all been published now. So here you're not going to be allowed to have any land. You're not going to be able to have your own house. They're going to say what resources you're allowed to have. They're even going to control reproduction. How many children you're allowed to have, whether the child is fit. And in their home and in their capital, they've already built the Capitol building. Guess who paid for that? I hope the Americans are proud because they're paying for all of this. Who do they think keeps the UN up? We pay 90% of it. And that thing is destroying us. They have built a Capitol building for the world down in Australia. It's huge if you've ever seen pictures of it. They were going to hold their first world meeting in December 2012, but something scared them. Something frightened them. They moved it up to December 2011. Guess what the first meeting was? 10,000 representatives there. Every religion, every faith, every denomination. We're talking Christian everything. We're there at the meeting. So if all the Christian denominations say they're not aware of this, they're lying. They were there. They had representatives there. The Methodists had representatives there. The Baptists had representatives there. The Roman Catholics had representatives there. The Buddhists, the Taoists, you name it. They were all there. The meeting was to do one thing, how to set up a one world government and to set up a one world religion to match it. That's what the meeting was about. Their emphasis was on the one world religion part. So that meeting's already been held. If people wonder why Christians are being warred against in this country and in Europe and Canada, that's because there's not supposed to be any Christians when this is all finished. There's going to be a one world religion. That's their goal. Now they've already announced it. They've already held the meeting. It's already been done.
A question I have, Mike, is if there's not going to be any Christians, what kind of religion are we talking about?
Well, you've already heard one group on television talking about Chrislam, the mixing of the Muslim faith with the Christian faith. Well, anybody knows anything about Christianity and Muslim, no, you can't do that. It's impossible. And anybody that's ever read and looked at a real Quran, not the American version, a real Quran, which I was lucky enough to see. When I was in school, we were studying religion, and they brought in all these religions and brought in a Quran, a real Quran. It's a religion of death. And I'll tell you what it says right in there. I don't remember which verses it says. You either convert or you're to be killed. Period. There's no in between. There's no living with them. If you've got a neighbor, his job is either to convert you, and if you don't convert, to kill you. That's made perfectly clear in the Quran. Now, you may be living with Muslims, and they may be good-hearted people, I don't know. But that'd be those that don't even want to be Muslims anymore. But what happens to Muslims that convert to Christianity over there in those countries, they kill them. It's just that simple. That's not a secret. They just murdered them. And so there isn't going to be any Christianity when this is over with. And let me just tell the Catholics out there, folks, you had representatives there too. That's the largest part of Christianity is the Roman Catholic Church. They got like 1.2 billion or something like that. You had representatives there too. So if you think you're going to remain a true Roman Catholic, no, you're not. Your end is in sight too. They've already said it. And if people want to make comments about this and attack me on it, I just got to say one thing. Get off your lazy derriere and look up the facts. The facts are right there. And time's running out. And the reason this army's here, Americans get upset. The amount of detention camps that are built are 3,700 and something. There's around 600 prisons that have been built. And they're run by CCC, Corrections Corporation of America, and what's the other one? I can't think of it. Manahut?
Yes.
Is that it?
Yes.
I wrote it down for you. Oh, no, Wackahut. See, everybody that goes into the prison system, the government pays them a fee, so they make money the more they put in. The prison system built can hold 50 million Americans. The largest that I know of is up in Alaska at a Fairbanks, holds 2 million. It's known as a mental health center. Okay? What's Obama just saying you could pass up there? He's just trying to get passed, and they're trying to pass it in Congress right now. It may have passed since I'm talking to you. Right now. They want to pass a law to see who's mentally fit to own a firearm. Well, what's the next step? Mentally fit to own your own home? Mentally fit to be in society? They've already got a 2 million mental health facility up there. 2 million people in Alaska. Why in the outback of Alaska where nobody can see you? Do those people think they're coming home? 50 million people. I'm not the only one who reported this. Jack Lamb, man that was heading all this, a police officer from Texas, he was bringing all this up. He's not the only one. They got this there. When they say they want the population to be 500 million, and now let me tell you something, if the power grid goes down in this country, which that's what we're planning to do, that people already catch the clue by now, I want to know how all these people at home are going to survive. Where do they think they're going to get their oxygen from? Once the power grid goes down, how are they going to heat their homes in the wintertime up in the north? How many people you think that's going to kill? Do you think the drugs, they're going to still be able to go down to their local drugstore and get their drugs? When you look at how many people are hooked on pharmaceutical drugs in this country, there is no telling how many tens of millions are going to die within the first 6 to 18 months. Because the hospitals are going to be overwhelmed. The doctors are going to be overwhelmed. And now you got the MERS virus here, and H1N1, H1N9. Now you got the new Ebola virus, and all of these are war viruses created in a lab. That's already come out. And there's only a very few people in the world that have the incentive to make bioweapons like that. You would think it's the Chinese. No, the Chinese want to go in and populate countries. They need their population to man their huge 200 million man army that they've got. They need their population, you see, to go in and move into this country, which they're planning on taking over, which they're moving in a lot. And they're now taking over in Africa. Then you think, well, it's the Russians. Well, why would the Russians want to loosen that in the world when they're going to need their population to man their forces because they think they might have to go to war with us one day? There's only one group in the world who has all the financing and has everything to do this, and this is the New World Order people. They're the ones that own everything. And the Russians and the Chinese know that's where the real war is at. Matter of fact, if you've listened to Putin, he has come out and said it in several of his speeches of what really happened in North Africa, what's really happened in Syria, and what's really happened in the Ukraine. This stuff was all planned. And now that if you look at the Ukraine, a lot of people don't realize it. They don't want to grow GMO crops there because they know how dangerous they are. But Ukraine was a breadbasket of the world, one of the breadbaskets. Their grain's not going online this year because of the mess over there. They have already announced that we're 3 days away from, in the world, from total food shortage, food riots, which is also they have planned. There's a way that they can destroy all these crops everywhere. That is another whole program. You got to get into HARP, how HARP works. It's a system. You have to get into the 250 HARP stations around the world that we have. That's not counting the HARP stations China has. That's not counting the HARP stations that... then you have to get into the whole satellite array. You have to get into the ships at sea, the special airplanes they've got designed. You're into a whole system, and that system is absolutely integrated to everything in the United States. All your cell towers are involved in it. It just goes on and on and on. I mean, the Americans, if they don't wake up soon, and they don't get really active and take this seriously, and they can call me whatever names they want to. They say they love their children. Well, it's time for them to start proving it. They say they love their spouses. Well, it's time for them to start proving it. Because once all this breaks, and I'm hoping it doesn't break, what I'm hoping is enough people see stuff like this and say, we're going to get active and we're not going to take this anymore. Because once it starts, there isn't going to be any ending. They've already said from the White House they want to declare martial law. Obama threatened Congress several times with martial law. And once that starts, Congress is shut down. There's no more Congress. There's no more Supreme Court. That White House is in control as a dictatorship. And that's just the way it is. And if you look at the NADA, our National Authorization Defense Act, they already saying that they can do with any American what they want to.
Is this something similar that will happen like international law or, excuse me, or this Sharia law, that we don't have any constitution, we don't have any civil rights, we don't have any human rights? Is that what you're saying, basically?
That's already been set up there in Washington. Obama just said about a week ago in one of his speeches, and one of the things he was questioning how he wants to bring in Sharia law. He didn't come right out and boldly say it that way, but that's what he said. Sharia law is already being practiced. Americans need to see, women especially in this country don't want Sharia law.
No, because it eliminates their freedom.
They have no freedom. They will lose every single ounce of freedom they have under Sharia law. Anyone that wants Sharia law in this country has got to be crazy. And so, I looked at one of the, everybody knows that Obama's a Muslim. Anybody that knows him, they say he was a Muslim. Everyone that knows, he's a Muslim. He doesn't even care anything about Christianity or anything. Matter of fact, in one of the conferences he had, I noticed he had a Muslim carpet down the hallway. A lot of people probably didn't recognize the symbols on it, but I did. He's a Muslim. Everybody knows he's a Muslim. And he's already threatened officers in the military. You're either going to go along with all this or else. I mean, that's not a secret anymore either. So now you got too many people in Congress that's making bukus of money and stuff on this because they're feeding into the elite banker system. They don't care. That's what the Harry Reid deal was in Nevada. They don't care. And so if Americans don't wake up real soon And there's been scientists that have talked on this. They're not going to have their homes. They're going to be fortunate if they even have their lives. And they can forget about their families. They're not going to have a family. Out of 500 million people, and there's about 7.2 billion people in the world, and you spread 500 million around the earth, how many of them think they're going to survive? And they think this can't happen soon. They think it can't happen. They're foolish. The people have already said they're going to do this. And the only way you can keep it from happening is you have to stop them. Well, if Americans are going to be sitting over here, all drugged out on this is the reason why you got we don't have time to discuss all this. There's been a dirty trick played on the American people. A very, very, very dirty trick. If you look at your food, you see most of your food's been poisoned. Your children, when they are born, are given enough drugs for a 250-pound man. And anybody knows that when they're given all these shots, it does no good for them because of the fact that their bodies aren't capable of handling it until they're at least 2 years old. I don't even weigh 250 pounds. All the shots are preserved with thimerosal. Thimerosal is mercury-based. Does everybody remember years and years and years ago the warnings on television, don't eat this food because of mercury? Why, is mercury all of a sudden not less toxic? Mercury attacks the brain.
But I thank you for bringing this information out, Mike, and we're going to pass this on. I hope the viewers get an idea of what to do, what now that they know to get involved personally. We're going to flash on the screen how you can get in touch with Stars and Stripes. Right now, I thank you all for just joining us. Again, I'm your host, Pastor Ken Jones. Thank you for joining us with Stars and Stripes. And again, next time, God bless you.
I trust you enjoyed today's program. Please contact your congressman and let him know you are displeased with our Constitution being butchered. More executive orders came forth in the last 4 years than ever before in American history. Remember to pray for America. Be strong and of good cheer. Remember, America is worth fighting and dying for, as is Jesus our Lord. Until next time, this is Kenneth T. Jones saying, so long, friends.